You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name, Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. About 3 years ago, R. Kelly was arrested while he walked his dog outside Trump Towers in Chicago. His arrest was followed by a media outburst that saw reporters come up with different stories to explain the charges he was facing, and what the future looked like for the R&B King. We all know what followed as his bail application was denied several times, and how the Bureau of Prisons managed to keep him in custody for a good 2.5 years without trial. His rights were one by one being abused, but all the media had mouths for was the usual propaganda against him. This is not because the journalists couldn't see that R. Kelly's rights were being abused, but none of them had the balls to stand up and address this because bashing him more was the easier thing to do. Fast forward, and R. Kelly is eventually tried in a private courtroom with no cameras allowed at what looked like a kangaroo court, and he is eventually declared guilty for all 10 counts against him. Something that until now has never sunk in well as a possibility. While his haters were excited and jubilating about this, and while all this was going on, no one came out to clearly lay out the pieces of evidence that were used to determine him guilty one at a time. Media, however, continues to refer to overwhelming evidence which until now, we haven't had a chance to see or understand what it exactly was. There is mention of DNA evidence that confirms R. Kelly's semen was found on a shirt that belonged to a certain woman, but this doesn't make sense at all. R. Kelly is not denying ever having such intimate relations with these people. All he is saying is where the prosecution claims it was forceful, it was actually consensual, and where they suggest the women were underage, he says they were of age. This is what the prosecutors needed to prove against R. Kelly's defense. Not present test results of DNA from a shirt that was worn by an adult who willingly indulged with the R&B King, something he is not denying. Another piece of judgment the court wants us to believe is that R. Kelly was guilty of trafficking. However, like we mentioned in one of our previous videos, the definition of trafficking does not tally well with the events that did take place. If the prosecutors cannot prove that R. Kelly did transport any of these women across stateliness for the purpose of immoral behavior, where the original purpose of the trip was to engage in immoral behavior, then it's not proper to conclude that he is guilty on this specific count. One of the incidences the prosecution presented as evidence to back this up was when R. Kelly was attending Oscar awards in another state, and one of the accusers took a flight to join in. For God's sake, this is not trafficking considering the purpose of the trip was to attend the Oscars. Unless they want to suggest that attending the Oscars is an immoral act according to their kangaroo laws. And even if the two eventually did it, this does not in any way change the purpose of the trip. And before the prosecution draws a conclusion about this, can they even prove that the two did have intercourse when they eventually met at the Oscars? I guess not. If R. Kelly was found guilty of bribery, let me ask who has seen these records? Referring to a fake marriage certificate and people's word of mouth alone to draw a conclusion on bribery is completely haywire. And if he did bribe someone for anything, where is the person that received the bribe? Why won't they be held accountable as well? Another disturbing gaffe by prosecution was to smuggle the RICO violations onto his charge sheet, which according to a legal consultant was a strategy to allow them introduce claims from decades back into this case that would otherwise not be prosecuted. What we all know, however, is that the prosecution has completely failed to prove that R. Kelly operated an enterprise that helped him commit any alleged crimes. There are two ways the RICO violation claims get disqualified. First of all, if the crimes R. Kelly is said to have committed are still questionable as they currently are, with no real evidence to prove that he did these things, then the RICO under which the prosecutors claim he committed the crimes has no footing. You cannot organize an illegal enterprise to commit no real crimes. But also assuming R. Kelly did commit any crimes, where is the enterprise? Where are the people that formed his gang? If Daryl McDavid and Milton June Brown are innocent as were found to be in the Chicago case, and the prosecution was determined to have lied about their involvement, then where is the enterprise? I will not be surprised if the government says they have more DNA evidence to prove the RICO violations, like they did present the same to prove harassment. I still want to know what the DNA evidence was meant to prove anyway. It looks like the prosecution have their evidence jumbled up and are failing to sort which piece proves which claims. The only claims they are able to prove are actions that R. Kelly doesn't deny, but that are simply not criminal at all. For example, there is nothing wrong with an adult man having it with a 24-year-old hair braider. But if she later runs to the police with claims of assault, what the police needs to look for is not DNA on her shirt, but physical evidence indicating a scuffle, and these could be bruises or real injuries to show that the alleged victim put up a resistance, but was eventually subdued. A shirt covered in R. Kelly's DNA, or call it semen, does not prove this. According to Ray Johnson, this is all just a bunch of allegations and speculations that R. Kelly did things that have never been proved. The prosecution is just choosing to baptize everything under one name, RICO, with completely no consideration of what the RICO Act is all about. It's strange how they conclude he is guilty of trafficking, although none of the women claim he did transport them across state lines for any such solicitation and immoral acts as they put it. The women have said everything else but this. None has talked about R. Kelly transporting them and selling them for money or any such thing. It's just the narrative the government wants the world to believe. Indeed, like R. Kelly said during his interview with Gayle King, there are real victims out there being held against their will. But the government is not as interested because it's not big-time celebrities like R. Kelly committing the real crimes. According to Maria Slavinsky, it's a shame to learn that the previous defense legal team did not call up all the witnesses involved to contest the false accusations against their client. In the hair braider case, for example, once the real hair braider speaks out, the case will be closed. There just weren't enough defense witnesses on the case to counteract the kangaroo court proceedings. The whole idea of a private trial can also provide good ground for R. Kelly to appeal the New York conviction. Remember, everyone has a right to a fair and public trial. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.